She was still in her pajamas when the security guards came. No warning, no phone call, no explanation. Just a woman in pearls standing in her bedroom doorway, holding a manila envelope, and saying 5 words that changed everything. "You have 30 minutes to pack." Elise had lived in that mansion for 2 years. She loved their son. She built a life beside him. She thought she was family. She was wrong. They waited until Graham was 10,000 miles away. Then they erased her, changed his phone number, closed the bank accounts, told him she was a thief, told him she never loved him. But there was one thing they did not know, one thing that would destroy their entire plan. She was 8 weeks pregnant, carrying the only heir to a $1 billion empire. And the clock was ticking. By the time they found out, she was already gone. By the time they came looking, she had already built something they could not buy, could not forge, and could not take away: her own life. This is the story of a woman who lost everything in 30 minutes. And what she built from nothing in the months that followed will leave you speechless. Lesson and value. This story is not just about betrayal. It is about the moment a woman stops waiting to be saved and starts saving herself. It is a reminder that your worth is not determined by the people who throw you away. It is determined by what you build after they do. No name, no fortune, no family can define you unless you let them. And sometimes, the door that slams behind you is the same door that sets you free. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of your own strength or the strength of a woman you know, leave a comment below. Tell me, what would you have done in Elise's place? Hit that like button if you believe every woman deserves to write her own story. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you are new here, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. We post new ones every week, and trust me, the next one will keep you up past midnight. You have 30 minutes to pack what you can carry. After that, security will escort you off the property. Cordelia Aldridge stood in the doorway like she owned the air between them, which, in a way, she did. She owned the house. She owned the hallway. She owned the 2 men in dark suits standing behind her like shadows made of muscle and silence. Elise Hadley was still in her pajamas, the cotton ones with the tiny blue flowers. She had bought them at a Target 3 years ago, before she knew what it felt like to sleep on sheets that cost more than her rent. She blinked at Cordelia. Once, twice. The words didn't make sense. They floated in the air like a foreign language she had never studied. "Excuse me," Elise said. Cordelia stepped into the bedroom. Her heels clicked against the hardwood. Click, 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 like a countdown. "I said 30 minutes. Cordelia held out a manila envelope. "Inside, you will find a check for $200,000 and a non-disclosure agreement. Sign the agreement. Take the check. Leave quietly. I think that is more than generous, considering." "Considering what?" Cordelia's lips pressed into a thin line, the kind of line that had been practiced in mirrors, the kind of line that said everything and nothing at the same time. "Considering you were never one of us." The silence that followed was the loudest thing Elise had ever heard. It filled the room. It pressed against the windows. It sat on her chest like a stone. Graham. She needed Graham. He had left for Tokyo 3 days ago. A business emergency, he said. Something about a merger. He kissed her forehead at 4 in the morning. She remembered his lips. Warm, a little dry. He smelled like coffee and aftershave. "I will call when I land," he said. He never called. Elise reached for her phone on the nightstand. Her fingers were shaking. She could see them trembling, which was strange, because she did not feel like she was shaking. She felt like she was made of cement. She dialed Graham's number, the number she had called 1,000 times, the number she could recite in her sleep. A recorded voice answered. The number you have reached is no longer in service. She tried again. Same message, same robotic voice, same impossible words. His number has been changed, Cordelia said. She said it the way someone might say the weather had changed. Mildly, without concern. You changed his number? We protected him, from you. Elise stared at the woman standing in her bedroom. Cordelia wore a cream blazer and pearl earrings. Her silver hair was swept into a perfect twist. She looked like a magazine cover. She looked like a weapon disguised as elegance. Graham would never agree to this, Elise said. Graham does not know. And by the time he does, you will be gone. And the story will be very different from the one you are imagining. The two security men shifted in the hallway. One of them cleared his throat, a small, polite sound. The kind of sound that meant time was running out. Elise looked around the bedroom. 2 years of her life lived in this room. Her books on the nightstand, her nursing bag by the closet, a framed photo of her and Graham at a farmer's market, laughing at something she could not remember anymore. She opened the closet, pulled out her old suitcase, the one she had arrived with. It had a broken wheel and a stain from a spilled coffee on a Greyhound bus 7 years ago. She packed in silence. Cordelia watched from the doorway. She did not offer to help. She did not leave. She stood and watched like a warden counting inventory. 12 minutes. That is how long it took Elise to pack 2 years of her life. 12 minutes for the clothes, 2 minutes for the bathroom, 1 minute for the books. She left the jewelry. She left the designer bags Graham had bought her. She left the cashmere throw on the bed. She took the photo from the farmer's market. She took her mother's recipe cards from the kitchen drawer. She took the coffee mug that said, "World's okayest nurse," that her best friend Renata gave her as a joke 4 Christmases ago. "The check," Cordelia said, holding out the envelope again. "Keep it." "Excuse me?" "I said, keep it. I do not want your money." Something flickered across Cordelia's face. Surprise, maybe, or annoyance that the script was not going as planned. "You are making a mistake," Cordelia said. "Maybe, but it will be my mistake." The security men walked her to the front door, down the marble staircase, past the oil paintings and the fresh flowers, and the grandfather clock that chimed on the quarter hour. Through the foyer with its chandelier that cost more than most houses. The front door opened. The morning air hit her face. Cool, damp. It had rained overnight, and the gravel driveway smelled like wet earth and something ending. She walked to her car, the Honda Civic she had driven since nursing school. It looked small and out of place next to the stone columns and manicured hedges. She put the suitcase in the trunk, got in, started the engine, and then she looked up at the house. Spencer Aldridge was standing in the second-floor window, Graham's younger brother. He was 31 years old and had never worked at a day in his life that was not arranged by his mother. He had a glass of something dark in his hand, bourbon, probably. At 8 in the morning, he was smiling, not the polite smile of someone watching a guest leave, the satisfied smile of someone watching a plan come together. Elise felt something cold move through her chest. Not sadness, not yet. Something more primal. The animal recognition that she had been prey and the trap had been set long before she ever saw it. The iron gate opened automatically. Her car rolled through, and then the gate clanged shut behind her. The sound echoed down the empty road. Metal against metal. Final. Absolute. She drove for 11 minutes before she pulled over. A gas station parking lot. The kind with a flickering sign and a dumpster that smelled like old grease. She sat in the car, hands on the steering wheel. 10 and 2. Like her mother taught her when she was 16, She checked her phone, unlocked it, stared at Graham's last text message, sent 3 days ago, 4:17 in the morning. Miss you already? Home Tuesday. She locked the phone, unlocked it, read the message again, locked it, unlocked it, read it one more time, looking for something between the words, a clue, a warning, anything. She put the phone in the glove compartment and closed it. Then she sat in the silence. The engine idled. A truck pulled into the gas station and pulled out again. A dog barked somewhere far away. She did not cry. She wanted to. God, she wanted to. But the tears were stuck somewhere behind her ribs, trapped under the weight of what had just happened. She was 29 years old. She had a suitcase with a broken wheel, a car with 147,000 miles on it, and nowhere to go. She put the car in drive. The drive to Renata's apartment took 3 hours and 12 minutes. Elise did not turn on the radio. She did not make any calls. She drove in silence, watching the highway lines blur beneath her tires, counting exits like a person counting down to something she could not name. Renata Chambers opened the door before Elise could knock. She must have heard the footsteps in the hallway, or maybe she had been watching from the window. Renata was like that. She noticed things other people missed. She looked at Elise, at the suitcase, at the pajamas she was still wearing, under her jacket. Renata did not ask what happened. She did not gasp or say, "Oh my God," or reach for her phone. She just stepped aside and held the door open. "Guest room is made up," Renata said. "Towels are on the bed. I am ordering Thai food in 20 minutes, and you are eating whether you want to or not." Elise nodded. She walked inside. She sat on the couch. Renata sat beside her. They did not talk for a long time. The apartment smelled like coffee and lavender candles. The refrigerator hummed. A car alarm went off somewhere outside and stopped. 2 weeks passed. Elise moved through them like a person walking underwater. Everything was slower, heavier. The days blurred together. She showered when Renata told her to. She ate when Renata put food in front of her. She stared at the ceiling at 3 in the morning, mapping the cracks in the plaster like they were roads leading somewhere she could not reach. She tried to find work. She was a nurse practitioner with 8 years of experience, excellent references, and a spotless record. She sent out 14 applications in the first week. 3 callbacks, then nothing. Phone screens that went well until they didn't. Hiring managers who suddenly became unavailable. One recruiter called back and said, very carefully, "I am sorry, but the position has been filled." The position had been posted that morning. Someone was making calls. Someone with enough influence to close doors Elise had not even walked through yet. The Aldridge name was everywhere and nowhere, like a wall made of glass. She could see through it, but she could not get past it. On the 15th day, Elise woke up nauseous. She made it to the bathroom in time. She knelt on the tile floor, retching, gripping the edge of the bathtub. Stress, she thought. Of course it was stress. Her body was rebelling against the last 2 weeks, against the sleepless nights and the unanswered calls and the cold weight in her chest that would not move. The nausea came back the next morning, and the morning after that. Renata stood in the bathroom doorway on the 3rd morning, arms crossed, watching Elise rinse her mouth at the sink. "When was your last period?" Renata asked. Elise froze. The water ran over her fingers. Cold. "I do not know," she said. "Think." Elise thought. The calendar in her head was a mess of dates and airports, and the morning Cordelia's heels clicked across the bedroom floor. But somewhere underneath all of it, a number surfaced. 7 weeks. No, 8. 8 weeks, Elise said. Renata left the apartment. She came back 20 minutes later with a plastic bag from the pharmacy. Inside were 3 pregnancy tests, different brands, because Renata was thorough about everything. Elise took all 3. She sat on the bathroom floor, back against the wall, knees pulled up, while the little plastic sticks did their work on the edge of the sink. The bathroom fan rattled overhead. The tiles were cold through her pajama pants. She could hear Renata pacing in the hallway. 3 minutes. That is how long the instructions said to wait. 3 minutes that felt like 3 years. She looked. Blue line, blue line, blue line. 3 for 3, unanimous. The kind of certainty that leaves no room for negotiation. Elise sat on the bathroom floor for a long time after that. She did not know how long. Long enough for the light from the window to shift. Long enough for Renata to knock twice and ask if she was alive. "I am pregnant," Elise said. She said it to the bathroom tiles, to the rattling fan, to the universe that apparently had a sense of humor so dark it bordered on cruelty. 8 weeks pregnant, by Graham Aldridge, the man whose phone number no longer existed, the man whose family had erased her like a line of text deleted from a document. She pressed her palms against her eyes, hard enough to see stars. God, I was so stupid. The signs were right there, the morning sickness that started before I even left the estate, the exhaustion I blamed on the emotional stress, the tenderness that I chalked up to my period being late. She lowered her hands, looked at the 3 tests lined up on the sink like tiny soldiers, delivering the same impossible report. "I need to tell Graham," she said. Renata appeared in the doorway. Her face was careful, the kind of careful that meant she was choosing her words the way a surgeon chooses instruments. "How?" Renata asked. "His phone is dead. His email bounces. His assistant hangs up on you. I will call his office directly, the main line. They cannot all be screening my calls." But they could, and they were. Elise called Aldridge Industries headquarters the next morning. She used a calm, professional voice, the voice she used when delivering difficult diagnoses to patients. Steady, clear, no tremor. A new assistant answered, not the one Elise had spoken to before, a new voice, young, cheerful. "Aldridge Industries, how may I direct your call?" "I need to speak with Graham Aldridge. My name is Elise Hadley. He will know who I am." A pause. The sound of typing. Then the cheerfulness drained from the voice like water from a sink. "I am sorry, but Mr. Aldridge has requested no contact from this number." Click. Elise stared at the phone. The screen went dark. Her face reflected back at her in the black glass. She barely recognized herself. The circles under her eyes, the hollow cheeks, the hair she had not brushed properly in days. She put the phone down, picked it up, put it down again. She opened her banking app. The joint account Graham had set up for household expenses. She did not want the money. She just wanted to see something with his name on it. Proof that they had been real. The account was closed. Balance 0. Transferred out. All of it. Gone. She scrolled through her contacts. She had phone numbers for Graham's driver, his personal trainer, his barber. She called them all. Every single one. Disconnected. Changed. No longer in service. It was not just a breakup. It was an erasure. Systematic. Thorough. Professional. Like someone had hired a team to delete her from Graham Aldridge's life, and the team was very, very good at their job. That night, Elise lay in the guest bed at Renata's apartment. The ceiling fan turned in slow circles. The shadows spun with it. She put her hand on her stomach, flat still, no sign of anything different. But she knew, I am going to be a mother in a city where I have no job, no insurance, no partner, no home, The father does not know I exist anymore. His family made sure of that. She closed her eyes. The phone buzzed on the nightstand. An unknown number. She almost did not answer. Almost let it go to voicemail, like all the other calls from bill collectors and recruiters who would never call back. But something made her swipe. A woman's voice, soft, careful, almost whispering. You should know what they are telling him about you. Elise sat up in bed, the sheets twisted around her legs. Who is this? That does not matter right now. What matters is that Graham thinks you stole from his family. They showed him bank records, transfers from a household account to a personal one in your name, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Elise's heart was hammering. She could feel it in her throat, in her temples, in the hand pressed flat against her stomach. I never stole anything. I did not even use that account. Graham set it up, and I told him I did not want it. I know, the voice said. That is why I am calling. Then the line went dead. Elise sat in the dark for a long time, holding the phone against her chest. The screen glowed, then dimmed, then went black. Outside, a siren wailed and faded. The refrigerator hummed. Renata's cat jumped onto the bed, turned 3 circles, and settled against Elise's hip. She did not sleep that night. She lay in the dark, one hand on her stomach, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her own breathing. In, out, counting the breaths like they were proof of something. I am not going to beg. I have never begged anyone for anything in my life, and I am not starting now. Not even for him. The coffee shop was called Morning Light. It sat on a corner 2 blocks from Renata's apartment, sandwiched between a dry cleaner and a nail salon. The kind of place with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu and baristas who remembered your name after 2 visits. Elise arrived first. She ordered decaf. The barista gave her a look. Decaf? She said. Rough night? Rough month. She sat at a table near the window and watched the street. Cars passing. A woman walking a dog that was too big for her. A man arguing into his phone, gesturing with his free hand like he was conducting an invisible orchestra. The door opened at 9:15. Vivian Holt walked in like she was entering a room she had already decided was beneath her, then caught herself and softened. She was wearing sunglasses indoors, which she took off and placed on the table. Her eyes were red. Elise had seen photos of Vivian. Graham's mother had hung them around the estate like breadcrumbs. Vivian at a charity gala. Vivian at a polo match. Vivian on a yacht that belonged to someone whose name was always in the financial section. She was the woman Cordelia had chosen, the replacement, the upgrade. Thank you for meeting me, Vivian said. She did not sit down right away. She stood by the chair, fingers gripping the back of it, like she was still deciding whether to stay. Sit down, Elise said. You called me, so talk. Vivian sat. She ordered a black coffee and did not touch it. I am not a good person, Vivian said. That was the first thing she said. Not hello, not I am sorry, just that flat, honest admission, delivered like a weather report. I am not a good person, Elise, but I am not this. Not what? Not whatever they are doing to you. Vivian talked for 45 minutes. She talked the way people talk when they have been carrying something heavy for too long and their arms are giving out. She had been at the Aldridge estate 3 days after Elise was removed. Cordelia had invited her for dinner. A celebration, Cordelia called it. A new chapter. Vivian was supposed to be the opening sentence. After dinner, Vivian had gone to the library to find a book. The door to Barrett's study was open. She heard voices. Cordelia and Spencer. Rehearsing. Not a conversation. A rehearsal. Going over the story they would tell Graham when he returned from Tokyo. Practicing the words, adjusting the tone, making it believable. Spencer had printed bank statements, Vivian said. They looked real, professional, transfers from a household account into a personal one under your name. Dates going back 18 months. It looked like you had been skimming money the entire time you lived there. Elise felt the coffee mug in her hands, the heat moving through the ceramic. She held it tighter. I never opened a personal account connected to the household funds. I did not want access to their money. I told Graham that from the beginning. I know, because the routing numbers on the statements. I work in finance, Elise. I deal with bank documents every day. The routing numbers on those statements belong to a subsidiary account, the kind that requires corporate authorization to open. You could not have opened it. Only someone with Aldridge Industries access could. Spencer. Spencer. The word sat between them on the table, a small word for such a large betrayal. Vivian told her the rest. Graham had been called on a secure line by his mother 2 days after arriving in Tokyo. She told him Elise had been caught, that the evidence was clear, that Elise had taken the money and left voluntarily, signing a non-disclosure agreement and accepting a settlement. Graham had asked to speak with Elise. Cordelia told him Elise refused, that she had said, and Vivian quoted this exactly, "Tell him I got what I came for." Elise closed her eyes. The coffee shop sounds faded. The hissing espresso machine, the murmur of other conversations, the scrape of a chair on the tile floor. She was back in the emergency room 3 years ago, a Tuesday night shift. A car accident had come in, a man with blood on his forehead and glass in his hair. He was conscious, but disoriented. She cleaned the wound, checked his pupils, asked him the standard questions. "What is your name? Graham? Graham, do you know where you are?" "Hospital, obviously." He tried to smile, winced. "Sorry, bad habit. I make jokes when I'm scared. That is actually a very common coping mechanism. You're going to be fine." He looked at her, really looked at her. Not the quick glance of a patient cataloging their nurse. The slow, focused attention of someone seeing another person clearly for the first time. "You did not ask my last name," he said. "Should I have?" "Most people do. I am not most people, and your last name is not going to change your blood pressure." He laughed, then winced again. "Okay, no laughing. Got it. Can I at least ask your name?" "Elise." "Elise." "Okay, Elise. Since you are clearly not impressed by my extremely expensive suit that is now covered in blood, what would it take to get you to have dinner with me?" "Graham, you have a mild concussion and 7 stitches in your forehead. Let us start with discharge paperwork." "Is that a no?" "That is a not right now." He came back the next week to the emergency room with a box of donuts for the nursing staff and a single daisy in a paper cup for Elise. "I do not have a concussion this time," he said. "So technically, you have no medical reason to say no." She said yes. Their first date was at a roadside diner, not a restaurant with a dress code and a sommelier. A diner, because Elise had suggested it, and Graham had said, "Perfect. I hate restaurants where they describe the food for 15 minutes before they let you eat it." They sat in a red vinyl booth. He ordered a cheeseburger and ate it with his hands. He had a spot of ketchup on his chin for 20 minutes, and she did not tell him because it made her happy in a way she could not explain. He told her about growing up in the Aldridge house, the pressure, the expectations, the feeling of being a chess piece on someone else's board. "You looked at me like you actually saw me," he said. "In the emergency room, you treated me like a person, not a name, not a bank account, just a person with blood on his face who needed help." Those memories played now in the coffee shop, like a movie on a screen she could not turn off. Each one beautiful, each one poisoned. Was any of it real? If his family could erase her this easily, did he ever truly stand apart from them? Or was he always an Aldridge first and a man second? Vivian was watching her, waiting. "Why are you telling me this?" Elise asked. "Because Cordelia wants me to marry Graham. She has been positioning me for months. And I thought I wanted it. I thought, why not? He is handsome. He is rich. It is a good life." Vivian paused. She finally picked up her coffee, took a sip, made a face like it was cold. "But I overheard them rehearsing lies about a woman whose only crime was loving their son. And I realized that if they could do it to you, they could do it to me. The day I become inconvenient, I become you." Elise nodded, not in agreement, in recognition. The recognition of two women standing on different sides of the same trap, looking at it from different angles. "What do you want from me?" Elise asked. "Nothing. I just thought you should know. What you do with it is your business." Vivian put her sunglasses back on, left a 20 on the table, walked out. Elise sat alone. The coffee was cold. The barista was wiping down the counter. The afternoon light came through the window in long golden bars. She looked out at the street. A couple was arguing in the parking lot across the road. The woman was crying. The man kept checking his phone, not even looking at her, typing something. The woman wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and kept talking. The man kept typing. Elise watched for a moment too long, recognized something in the woman's posture, the particular slump of someone trying to have a conversation with a person who has already left. She looked away, picked up her mug, drank the cold coffee because wasting it felt wrong. That night, she went to a laundromat. 2 in the morning. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The washing machines churned. She sat in a plastic chair and watched her clothes spin in the dryer, round and round and round. The heat, the hum, the smell of cheap detergent and fabric softener. A magazine on the chair next to her, 6 months old, with a cover story about organizing your closet for spring. She placed her hand on her stomach, still flat, still impossible to believe, but real as the heat from the dryer, as real as the hum of the machine, as real as the tiny cluster of cells that was, at this very moment, becoming a person, her person. Elise did not sleep anymore. Not really. She drifted in and out of a shallow rest that never quite became sleep and never quite stayed awake. She lived in the gray space between, where thoughts circled like birds that could not land. But her mind was sharp, sharper than it had been in weeks. The fog of heartbreak was lifting, not because the pain was less, but because something harder and more useful was growing underneath it. Anger. Not the hot, screaming kind. Not the kind that throws things and slams doors. The cold kind. The kind that sits in your chest like a stone and says, "Figure this out, then act." She started with the bank statements, not the fabricated ones, her own. She kept meticulous records, always had, her mother's training. Margot Tierney balanced her diner's books by hand every night for 30 years. She taught Elise that numbers do not lie, but people do, and the numbers will always catch them. Elise printed every bank statement from the last 2 years, every transaction, every deposit, every withdrawal. She spread them across Renata's dining table like a paper map of her financial life. Then she pulled up the fabricated statements Vivian had described, the ones Spencer had created. Vivian had sent her photos, taken quickly on her phone, blurry but readable. Elise compared them, side by side, line by line. The fabricated statements showed transfers from the Aldridge household account to a personal account in Elise's name, amounts ranging from $5,000 to $30,000. 18 months of supposed theft. But the dates were wrong. 3 of the transfers were dated on days when the household account had been frozen for routine auditing. Elise knew this because she had been asked to sign a temporary access waiver by the family accountant. She still had the waiver, and the routing numbers. Vivian was right. They belonged to a corporate subsidiary account, the kind that required Aldridge Industries authorization, the kind Elise could not have opened if she tried. She traced the routing numbers through public filings. It took her 6 hours and 4 cups of decaf coffee, but she found it. The account was registered under a holding company called Pemberton Lane Capital, a subsidiary of Aldridge Industries, and the authorized signatory on the account was Spencer Barrett Aldridge. Elise sat back in her chair. The dining table was covered in paper. Renata's cat was sitting on a stack of bank statements, licking its paw. She had the evidence. Spencer had created a fake account in her name, funneled money through it, and presented the fabricated trail to Graham as proof of theft. It was not just a lie. It was a construction, built with patience and precision and the particular arrogance of someone who believed they would never be caught. But why? That was the question that nagged at her. Spencer was already rich. He lived in the Aldridge estate. He drove cars that cost more than houses. He had never wanted for anything in his life. The answer came 2 days later. Renata's cousin worked in estate law. Over dinner, Elise mentioned the Aldridge family in passing, and the cousin's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. The Aldridge succession clause, the cousin said. Everyone in estate law knows about it. It is textbook. What clause? The grandfather's will. Rutherford Aldridge. He was old money, old school. He left controlling interest in Aldridge Industries to the eldest son, Graham, but with a condition. Graham must produce a legitimate heir by his 35th birthday. If he does not, the controlling shares split equally between both brothers. Elise felt the room tilt, not physically, emotionally, like a camera shifting focus. And suddenly, the background became the subject. When does Graham turn 35? Elise asked. I do not know the exact date, but if the clause is activated, Spencer goes from a salaried family member to an equal partner in a company worth billions. Elise put down her fork. The food on her plate looked different now. Everything looked different. Spencer did not push her out because he disliked her. He did not create the fabricated bank records because he wanted to protect his brother. He did it because Elise was in the way. As long as she was with Graham, there was a chance Graham would have a child before 35, and that child would lock Spencer out of the inheritance forever. She was not just heartbroken. She was not just slandered. She was a target, and the baby inside her was the biggest threat to Spencer's plan. The realization hit her like cold water. If they find out I am pregnant, the baby becomes evidence, and evidence can be destroyed. She looked across the table at Renata, then at Renata's cousin, who was already moving on to another topic. I cannot tell anyone. Not yet. Not until I am safe, she told 2 people, Renata and her mother, Margot. She called Margot on a Tuesday evening. The diner would be closing. Margot would be wiping down the counter, the way she did every night, moving the cloth in the same slow circles she had been making since Elise was a child sitting on the stool by the register, doing homework. Mom, I need to tell you something. Margot Tierney listened. She did not interrupt. She did not gasp. She did not cry. She listened the way she listened to everything, with the focused stillness of a woman who had buried a husband, raised a daughter alone, and kept a failing diner alive through 3 recessions. When Elise finished, there was a pause, long enough to hear the clock on the diner wall tick twice. I am closing the diner for the week, Margot said. I will be there tomorrow. Mom, you do not have to. Elise Marie Hadley. I have been wiping down this counter for 32 years. It can wait. You cannot. Margot arrived the next afternoon. She walked into Renata's apartment with a suitcase and a cooler full of homemade soup. She looked at the dining table, covered in bank statements. She looked at Elise. She looked at the dark circles under her daughter's eyes and the way her hands kept moving to her stomach. She did not hug Elise. Not yet. That would come later. Instead, she sat down at the table, opened her purse, and pulled out a pair of reading glasses, the same drugstore pair she had worn for 8 years. One arm held together with a piece of clear tape. She put them on, picked up the first bank statement, read it, picked up the next one, read that too. She did this for 40 minutes. Elise and Renata sat on the couch, watching. The apartment was silent except for the rustle of paper and the occasional creak of Margot's chair. Then Margot looked up, took off her glasses, folded them carefully. "These people are sloppy," she said. "Rich people always are. They think money covers mistakes. It doesn't. It just makes the mistakes bigger." She picked up a pen, started circling discrepancies, the wrong dates, the impossible routing numbers, the transfers that did not match the audit schedule. "We are going to need a lawyer," Margot said. "A real one, not a family friend, not someone they can buy, someone who has nothing to lose," Elise nodded. The anger in her chest was no longer cold. It was warming, not hot, not reckless, but steady. Like a pilot light that someone had finally turned on. "I did not lose everything. They took everything. There is a difference. And I intend to take it all back." That night, Elise could not sleep again, but this time, it was not because of grief. It was because her mind was working, planning, building something. She lay in bed, hand on her stomach, and for the first time since the morning Cordelia's heels clicked across the bedroom floor, she felt something other than pain. She felt dangerous. 10,000 miles away, in a hotel room on the 47th floor of a tower in Shinjuku, Graham Aldridge was drinking scotch at 2 in the afternoon and staring at the Tokyo skyline without seeing it. Elise did not know this. She would not know it for weeks. But Vivian told her eventually, in pieces, the way you describe a car accident. Not all at once, a detail here, a detail there, each one worse than the last. Graham had believed his family. That was the wound. Not that they lied, but that he believed them. Immediately, completely, without question. His mother called on a secure line 3 days after he landed in Tokyo. Her voice was careful, practiced, the same voice she used when she told him his childhood dog had been put down while he was at boarding school. "Darling, I need to tell you something difficult." She told him Elise had been stealing, that the evidence was incontrovertible, that when confronted, Elise had accepted a settlement and signed a non-disclosure agreement and left, voluntarily, without a fight. She said, and I am quoting her directly, "Tell him I got what I came for." Graham asked to speak with Elise. Cordelia said Elise refused, that she had already changed her number and moved out, that she wanted no contact, and Graham believed it. Because why would his mother lie? She was cold, yes, controlling, yes, but she had never outright fabricated a story, never constructed an elaborate fraud. He could imagine her pushing Elise away. He could imagine cruelty, but not this, not a production. So he grieved. The way men grieve when they have been taught that grief is a private weakness. He drank. He missed meetings. He stood in the hotel shower with the water running hot until it turned cold and stood there longer. His assistant found him asleep in the conference room twice. His business partners exchanged concerned looks. A merger worth $300 million moved forward without his attention, because lawyers and accountants did the actual work and just needed his signature. He signed everything they put in front of him. He did not read any of it. At night, he lay in the hotel bed and thought about Elise, the way she pronounced supposedly with too many syllables when she was tired, the way she organized the refrigerator by color without realizing she was doing it, the night they danced in the kitchen to a song neither of them could remember the name of, and she stepped on his foot and laughed so hard she snorted, and the snort made her laugh harder, and they ended up on the floor, helpless. Those memories were ruined now. Rewritten. The woman in them was not who he thought she was. At least, that was what he believed. Elise learned all of this through Vivian, who learned it through Spencer, who bragged about it in the casual, offhand way that Spencer bragged about everything. At a family dinner, over wine, like it was a story about a stock trade that had gone well. "Graham is a wreck," Spencer told their mother. "He is not eating. He is barely sleeping. It is almost sad." "He will recover," Cordelia said. "Men always do, especially when they have the right woman beside them." She looked at Vivian. Vivian smiled. Later in the bathroom, she threw up. Elise knew she had to reach Graham, not through the channels his family controlled, not through the phone numbers they had changed, not through the assistants they had replaced. She wrote a letter, by hand, 8 pages, on lined notebook paper, the kind she used to take notes in nursing school. Her handwriting was small and careful. She told him everything: the pregnancy, the fabricated bank records, Spencer's inheritance motive, the routing numbers that traced to a corporate subsidiary, the access waivers that proved the transfers were impossible on the dates listed. She did not beg. She did not plead. She wrote facts, clear, documented, verifiable facts. And then at the end, she wrote one personal thing: "I never wanted your money. I never wanted your name. I wanted the man who showed up at my emergency room with glass in his hair and made jokes because he was scared. If that man is still in there, he will know this letter is telling the truth." She mailed it to his hotel in Tokyo. She had the address from a trip they planned together 6 months ago. A trip they never took because Barrett had a health scare and Graham flew home instead. The letter arrived at the hotel 4 days later. A man at the front desk accepted it. He looked at the name on the envelope. Then he looked at his phone, where a text from a number with a New York area code offered him $5,000 for any correspondence addressed to Graham Aldridge from an Elise Hadley. He made a call. 40 minutes later, a courier picked up the letter. It was delivered not to Graham's room, but to an office in Manhattan. Spencer's office. Spencer read the letter, all 8 pages. He read it sitting at his desk, with a glass of bourbon and a view of Central Park. Then he read the part about the pregnancy. He set down the glass, picked up his phone, called Cordelia. "We have a problem." Elise did not know the letter had been intercepted. She waited. 1 day, 2, 5, a week. She checked the mail. She checked her phone. She checked the email account she had set up specifically for Graham to find. Nothing. He is not coming. He read the letter. He knows the truth, and he chose them anyway. That was the thought that nearly broke her, not the eviction, not the fabricated charges, not the pregnancy she was navigating alone, the thought that Graham had the truth in his hands and chose to put it down. She did not know he never held it. She did not know it was sitting in Spencer's desk drawer, tucked between a quarterly earnings report and a restaurant receipt. She did not know. And not knowing was the cruelest part. 2 weeks after mailing the letter, Elise's name appeared on social media, a blind item on a gossip account. Which Aldridge heir's ex-girlfriend was caught skimming from the family fortune? Sources say she walked away with a 6-figure payout, and an NDA. Guess loyalty has a price tag. Renata found it first. She turned her phone toward Elise without saying anything. Elise read it, read the comments. Women she had never met calling her names she would not repeat, strangers dissecting her character based on 3 sentences of fiction. Her professional reputation, already damaged by the mysterious job rejections, crumbled further. A hospital where she had interviewed the previous week sent a retraction email. After further review, we have decided to move forward with other candidates. Renata's sister mentioned Elise's situation at a charity event. Not maliciously, just in passing. The kind of casual mention that travels at the speed of gossip, which is faster than light and twice as destructive. Within 48 hours, the whispers had a name. Elise Hadley, the Aldridge gold digger. Elise sat at Renata's kitchen table, reading the comments on her phone, and felt something she had not felt before. Not sadness, not anger, exhaustion. The bone-deep kind. The kind that makes you want to close your eyes and not open them for a very long time. She closed the phone, set it face down on the table. She walked to the kitchen, opened the cabinet, took out flour, sugar, eggs, butter, lemons. Her mother's lemon pound cake. The recipe on a stained index card in Margot's handwriting. The measurements were in Margot's shorthand. A generous cup, instead of an exact amount. Enough butter to make it sing. Elise measured flour by feel. The way Margot taught her, not with a measuring cup, but with her hands, feeling the weight of it, the cool powder between her fingers. She cracked the eggs one-handed. She zested the lemons. The kitchen filled with the sharp, clean smell of citrus, cutting through the stale apartment air like a blade of sunlight. She poured the batter into a loaf pan, put it in the oven, set the timer. Then she stood by the oven door and watched the cake rise through the glass. The heat on her face, the hum of the appliance, the slow, patient transformation of raw ingredients into something whole. The timer went on off. She pulled the cake out, cut a slice, ate it standing over the sink, crumbs falling on her shirt, butter still warm on her lip. And then the baby kicked. Not a flutter, not a maybe. A kick. A real, unmistakable, undeniable kick. A tiny foot, or fist, or elbow pressing against the wall of her body, saying, in the only language it knew, I am here. Elise put her hand on her stomach, stood very still. The kitchen was quiet. The oven ticked as it cooled. The lemon smell lingered. She smiled, small, private. Not because anything was fixed, but because some things are bigger than the wreckage around them. 5 months pregnant, that was the number Elise carried with her like a clock counting forward while the rest of her life counted backward. 5 months of growth inside her, while everything outside fell apart. She had found a job. A community health clinic in a neighborhood where the buildings leaned against each other like tired friends. It paid half what she used to make. The hours were long. The patients were complicated. She loved it in a way she had not expected. These were people who needed her. Not because of her last name, or her connections, or the man she used to sleep next to. Because she could start an IV in under 30 seconds, and she never made anyone feel small for not having insurance. She rented a studio apartment above a dry cleaner. The ceiling leaked when it rained. The radiator clanked at 3 in the morning like someone knocking to get in. But it was hers, her name on the lease, her key in the lock, her coffee mug on the counter. She was building something, quietly, without an audience, and then her body said no. It started with a headache, not the regular kind, the kind that sat behind her eyes and pressed outward like something trying to escape. Then the swelling in her ankles, then the spots in her vision, tiny black dots that floated like gnats. She knew what it was before Dr. Nora Priestley confirmed it. Preeclampsia, early stage, manageable, but dangerous if ignored. Bed rest, Dr. Priestley said. Starting now, not tomorrow, not after your shift. Now. I cannot afford bed rest. I just started this job. I do not have leave yet. Elise, if your blood pressure continues to rise, we are looking at a hospital admission, or worse. Bed rest is not optional. Elise sat on the examination table in her clinic scrubs. The paper crinkled underneath her. The fluorescent light buzzed. She could hear a baby crying in the waiting room. I do not have insurance through the clinic yet. The waiting period is 90 days. We will work something out, but you need to go home. Home. The studio apartment above the dry cleaner, with the leaking ceiling and the clanking radiator. Home, where there was no one to bring her water, or check her blood pressure, or hold her hand if something went wrong. She drove to the apartment, climbed the stairs slowly, opened the door, sat on the edge of the bed. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet that does not comfort, the kind that amplifies. She picked up her phone, scrolled through her contacts, past Graham's old number, which she kept even though it was dead, past the numbers for his driver, his trainer, his barber, all disconnected. Digital ghosts. She found her mother's number, pressed call. It rang 3 times. Mom! What is wrong? How do mothers do that? 1 word, 1 syllable, and they know. I need you. Margot did not ask for details. She said, I am closing the diner. I will be there by midnight. Mom, it is a 6-hour drive. Then I will be there by midnight. Do not argue with me. The phone went dead. Elise lay on the bed. She stared at the ceiling. The water stain from the last rain looked like a map of a country that did not exist. She put her hand on her stomach. The baby was still. Sleeping maybe? Or just waiting, the way babies wait, with the infinite patience of someone who has not yet learned that the world is impatient. The hospital admitted her 2 days later. Precautionary. Her blood pressure was not coming down. The swelling was getting worse. Dr. Priestley wanted monitoring. Room 412. A single room because the maternity ward was half empty on a Wednesday. The bed had rails. The monitor beeped. The blood pressure cuff inflated and deflated every 15 minutes, like the room itself was breathing. A nurse came in to check her vitals. Young, friendly. She looked at the chart. Is there a father we should contact? Elise stared at the intake form. The blank line next to father's name. The cursor of the pen hovered over it. She wrote, unknown. The nurse glanced at it, did not comment, moved on to blood pressure. Elise lay in the hospital bed that night, alone, and scrolled through her phone. Not Graham's old messages. She had deleted those weeks ago. She was looking at apartments, cheaper ones, studios she could afford, on reduced hours. 1-bedrooms in neighborhoods she had never heard of. She zoomed in on the photos. Tiny kitchens, narrow hallways. Rooms where the walls were so close you could touch both sides with your arms outstretched. She tried to figure out where a crib would fit. In this one, by the window. In that one, in the closet. In the last one, nowhere. There was simply nowhere for a crib. She closed the browser, put the phone down. The monitor beeped. The blood pressure cuff inflated. The room breathed. At 3:14 in the morning, Margot Tierney walked through the door of room 412. She was wearing her driving coat, the one she had owned since Elise was in high school. It smelled like the diner, coffee and grease and the hand lotion she kept by the register. She had a suitcase, a cooler full of soup, and the expression of a woman who had driven through a thunderstorm for 6 hours and would drive through another 6 if that was what it took. She did not say anything at first. She put the suitcase by the wall, put the cooler on the windowsill, pulled a chair to the bedside. Then she took Elise's hand, held it, not tightly, not loosely, the exact right pressure. Elise cried. Finally, the tears she had been holding since the morning the iron gate clanged shut. They came out ugly and loud and messy. She cried with her mouth open and her nose running and her shoulders shaking. She cried like a child who has been pretending to be brave for too long. Margot did not shush her, did not say it would be okay, did not offer solutions or platitudes or silver linings. She held her daughter's hand and let her cry. Because sometimes that is all a mother can do, and sometimes it is enough. When Elise stopped crying, Margot handed her a tissue and said, "Now, tell me about Spencer's bank account." Even in room 412, with the monitors beeping and the blood pressure cuff breathing, Margot Tierney was not a woman who wasted time. Outside the hospital, the night was dark and wet. Rain streaked the window. The parking lot lights made halos in the glass. I am going to be a mother. That is bigger than any name, any fortune, any man who let his family throw me away. This baby does not know about bank records, or inheritance clauses, or iron gates. This baby only knows my heartbeat. And my heartbeat is strong. Elise squeezed her mother's hand. Spencer hired a private investigator, she said. Margot's jaw tightened. How do you know? Vivian called this morning. She overheard Spencer on the phone. He has my medical records. He knows about the preeclampsia, and he knows the baby is a boy. Margot was quiet for a long time. The clock on the wall ticked. The monitor beeped. Then she said, "Good." "Good?" He is getting nervous. Nervous people make mistakes, and he has already made plenty. 7 months pregnant. The apartment above the dry cleaner smelled like lavender and paint. Elise stood in what would be the baby's corner. Not a room, a corner. The apartment was too small for a nursery. But she had sectioned off an area near the window with a curtain she sewed herself, and she was painting the wall behind it. Pale yellow, the color of morning. She had paint in her hair, a streak of it on her chin. Her back ached from standing. Her ankles were swollen, and Dr. Priestley would have scolded her for being on her feet this long. But she needed this, the physical act of building something. Brush strokes on a wall, color where there had been none. Order in a space that was entirely hers. Margot had moved in. Temporarily, she said, which meant indefinitely. She slept on the pull-out couch. She cooked dinner every night. She went to the free legal clinic on Tuesdays and brought back pamphlets and business cards and eventually, in name, Deacon Whitfield. He was 55 years old, semi-retired. He lived in a brownstone that needed work, wore suits that were 10 years out of fashion, and drank coffee so strong it could remove paint. He had worked for the Aldridge family 20 years ago. Corporate counsel, 3 years on the inside, and then he left. Ethical disagreements, he said, when Margot asked why. That is the polite version. The impolite version is that Barrett Aldridge asked me to do something I would not do, and when I refused, I was given 24 hours to clear my desk. He did not say what Barrett asked him to do. Elise did not push. Some doors are closed for a reason, and the hinges are rusty. Margot brought him to the apartment on a Thursday evening. He sat at the kitchen table, which also served as the dining table, the desk, and the ironing board. He drank Margot's coffee, which was almost as strong as his own. Elise put the evidence in front of him. The real bank statements, the fabricated ones, the routing numbers, the corporate filings, the access waivers. Deacon read everything, slowly, methodically. He turned each page with the care of a man reading something sacred or explosive. In this case, both. When he finished, He took off his glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose, looked at Elise. "This is not just family drama," he said. "This is fraud. Wire fraud. If these bank transfers were fabricated and used to defame you, and if those fabricated records were transmitted electronically, that is a federal offense. We are not talking about a civil suit. We are talking about criminal exposure." Elise felt the words land, heavy, real. "What do we do?" she asked. "First, we preserve everything. If Spencer gets wind that you have this evidence, he will destroy it. I will file a preservation order. That means all Aldridge family communications related to you become legally protected. No deletion. No alteration." "Will that tip them off?" "Yes, but it also means they cannot hide." Elise nodded. She looked at Margot, who was standing by the stove, arms crossed, wearing an expression that could best be described as satisfied fury. The days that followed were quiet ones, the kind of quiet that comes before something big. Elise worked reduced hours at the clinic. She cooked dinner, she read baby books, she started a small savings account and deposited $27. It was not much. It was hers. She went to the grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon. The aisles were nearly empty. She moved slowly, one hand on the cart, one hand on her belly. The baby was active that day, kicking, stretching, making his presence known. At the checkout, a woman was in front of her, young, tired, a toddler in the cart, and a pile of diapers on the belt. The woman swiped her card. Declined. She swiped it again. Declined. She looked at the cashier. The cashier looked back with the practiced neutrality of someone who sees this 10 times a day. The woman put back the bottle of wine, kept the diapers. Elise added a bottle of wine to her own cart, paid for her groceries and the wine. In the parking lot, she found the woman loading the toddler into a car seat. "Here," Elise said, holding out the bottle. The woman looked at her, at the wine, at Elise's pregnant belly. "You cannot even drink that," the woman said. "I know, that is why you should have it." The woman took the bottle. Their eyes met for a moment, no names exchanged, no stories told, just one moment of recognition between two women holding their lives together with both hands. Elise drove home. The car smelled like the lavender air freshener Renata had hung from the mirror. The radio played a song she did not recognize. She hummed along anyway. That evening, Deacon called. His voice had a different quality, sharper, more alert. "I made a call to a contact inside Aldridge Industries, someone I trust, someone who owes me a favor from 20 years ago, and Graham is coming back to the States next week. He has been told about the gossip articles, the social media posts, the gold digger narrative, and he is furious." Elise's hand tightened on the phone. "Furious at who?" "At you. Spencer's story is holding. Graham believes every word." She closed her eyes, leaned against the kitchen counter. The baby kicked, hard, like a protest. "There is something else." "Bibish Deacon said. "Vivian called me directly this morning. Spencer proposed to her last night." "What?" "He said it would solidify the family image. Cordelia's idea. A united front. 2 Aldridge brothers, both settled, both respectable. It buries the scandal." "What did Vivian say?" "She said yes, and then she went to the bathroom and threw up." A long pause. The clock on the wall ticked. The radiator clanked. "She wants to help, Elise. She told me to tell you." Her exact words were, "Tell me what you need me to do." Elise opened her eyes. The kitchen was small and warm and smelled like the chicken soup Margot had left simmering on the stove. The pale yellow paint on the baby's wall caught the lamplight and glowed. She had spent months surviving, enduring, absorbing blows and standing back up and absorbing more. She had been reactive, responding to each new crisis as it came, putting out fires while the arsonist walked free. That was about to change. "Tell Vivian I need Spencer's laptop," Elise said. Specifically, his email history, any communication between him and the hotel concierge in Tokyo, any drafts of the fabricated bank records, any texts to Cordelia. That is a lot to ask. She is engaged to him. She lives in his house. She has access. Deacon was quiet for a moment. If she gets caught, it is over. For her. For us. Then she better not get caught. Elise hung up the phone, stood in her kitchen, one hand on the counter, one hand on her belly. The woman who had sat on a gas station parking lot in her pajamas, checking and rechecking a dead man's text messages, was gone. She did not disappear. She evolved. The way a caterpillar does not die. It becomes something else entirely. Something with wings. The drive from Vivian's apartment to Deacon's office took 17 minutes. Vivian made it in 11. She parked crookedly, ran up the stairs, put a flash drive on Deacon's desk, like it was a grenade, with the pin pulled. "Everything is on there," she said. She was breathing hard. Her hands were shaking. Emails, drafts, texts, all of it. Deacon plugged the drive into his computer. The files loaded, folders upon folders, organized by date. Spencer was meticulous about his schemes, the way some people are meticulous about their music libraries. The emails were devastating. A chain between Spencer and a concierge at the Cerulean Hotel in Tokyo. 7 messages. Polite, professional, businesslike. The concierge was paid $3,000 to intercept any mail addressed to Graham Aldridge. From an Elise Hadley, confirmation of receipt, confirmation of forwarding. A scan of the letter itself, all 8 pages, attached to the final email. Spencer had read every word Elise wrote to Graham. Every fact, every plea, every proof, and he buried it. The fabricated bank records were there too, in draft form. 3 versions. The first was sloppy. Wrong dates, inconsistent amounts, the kind of work that would not survive scrutiny. The second was better. The third was polished, professional, convincing. Spencer had practiced, like a forger learning to copy a masterpiece, getting closer and closer to something that could pass as real. And then the texts, a thread between Spencer and Cordelia. Brief, matter-of-fact, the language of 2 people who understood each other perfectly and did not waste words. Spencer, the nurses handled. G will never know. Cordelia, good. When is Vivian coming for dinner? Spencer, Thursday. Wear the blue dress. She responds to authority. Cordelia, I always wear the blue dress. Deacon printed everything. 3 copies. 1 for his files, 1 for the court, 1 for a safe deposit box that only Elise knew about. He filed the preservation order the next morning. Emergency motion. All Aldridge family communications related to Elise Hadley were now legally protected from destruction. The order was served to the Aldridge family attorney at 9:15 in the morning by a process server who reported that the attorney's face went very white, very fast. Spencer found out by noon, Cordelia by 1, Barrett by dinner, and Graham by the next morning. He was back in New York. The Aldridge estate, the same house where Elise had been escorted out 7 months ago. He was thinner. The Tokyo trip had hollowed him out. His suits fit differently. His eyes had the flat, dull quality of someone who had stopped sleeping and started enduring. He asked Cordelia about the preservation order. She was sitting at the dining table. Coffee. A newspaper she was not reading. The performance of normalcy. Performance. It is a nuisance, Cordelia said. That woman is trying to extort us. It is what people like her do. people like her? People who do not belong. Graham looked at his mother. She was 63 years old. She had raised him with precision and distance, like a gardener who prunes the hedges, but never touches the roses. He had spent his entire life seeking her approval and receiving, at best, her tolerance. "I want to see the evidence. The cited," he said. "It was the bank records. The proof that she stole from us. Your brother handled that. Then I want Spencer to show me. Graham, darling, this is beneath you. Let the lawyers manage it." But Graham was already walking out of the dining room, down the hallway, to the library. The library was his favorite room. Walls of books, leather chairs, the smell of old paper and wood polish. It was the room where he had read to Elise on rainy afternoons. She liked mysteries. He liked histories. They would sit in adjacent chairs, feet tangled together on the ottoman, reading in companionable silence. He walked to the shelf where Elise used to browse. Her favorites were still there. She had not taken them. A collection of Agatha Christie novels, a dog-eared copy of a book about herb gardens, and tucked inside one of them, between pages 64 and 65, a photograph, Elise and Graham, their first anniversary. They were at the farmer's market. She was holding an absurdly large sunflower. He was laughing at something she said. The photo was taken by a stranger they asked to hold the camera. On the back, in her handwriting, small and careful, "Thank you for seeing me." He stared at the photograph for a long time. The light in the library shifted. Afternoon became evening. The shadows grew longer. He remembered. That was their thing. The thing she said in the emergency room. The first thing that made him fall in love. "You looked at me like you actually saw me." Graham turned the photograph over, looked at her face, looked at his own face, the happiness in it, the particular kind of happiness that comes from being known by another person. He tried to reconcile this woman with the woman his mother described, the thief, the schemer, the woman who said, "Tell him I got what I came for." It did not fit. The pieces did not match, like a puzzle with a piece from a different box forced into the wrong spot. He called the old phone number, the one he used to call 10 times a day, disconnected. He called the apartment they had looked at together before she moved into the estate, a new tenant. Never heard the name. Every road back to her had been demolished, not by accident, by design, with the thoroughness of a demolition crew following orders. He had never tried to reach her himself. He let his family handle it. He trusted them, and they used that trust like a key to a door he did not know was being locked. Sunday dinner, the family table, crystal glasses, silver flatware, the good china that Cordelia reserved for occasions when appearance mattered more than comfort. Barrett at the head, Cordelia to his right, Spencer across from Graham. The table could seat 14. 4 people made it feel emptier. Graham set his phone on the table. Screen up. On it, the photograph from the library, Elise and the sunflower, his own laughing face, the handwriting on the back. He did not yell. He did not slam his fist on the table. He spoke quietly, the quiet that comes before storms. "Where is she?" Spencer looked at the phone. His fork paused midway to his mouth. Then he resumed eating. "Who?" "You know who." Cordelia set down her napkin. "Graham, this is not the time." "Where is Elise? What did you do? And do not lie to me, because I have spent 7 months believing every word you told me, and the woman in that photograph is not a thief." Silence. The kind that fills a room like water. Spencer took a sip of wine. Barrett stared at his plate. Cordelia adjusted her pearls. Then Barrett spoke. Barrett Aldridge, who had not offered a meaningful opinion on anything in 20 years. Barrett, who signed what Cordelia asked him to sign and attended what Cordelia asked him to attend, and played the role of patriarch the way an actor plays a character he is tired of. Barrett looked up from his plate, looked at his eldest son, and said 5 words that broke the machinery of the family's deception. Tell him, Cordelia, or I will. Cordelia turned to her husband. Her face did something Elise would never see but would have recognized. The surface cracked, just for a second, like a porcelain mask hit by a pebble. Barrett. No, not this time. I let you handle the dog. I let you handle the schools. I let you handle everything because it was easier than arguing with you. But this? Our son is destroying himself over a lie we told him, and there is a child. The word landed on the table like a stone in still water. What child? Graham said. The silence stretched. The clock ticked. Ticked, ticked. She was sitting on the floor of the baby's corner when the knock came, 8 months pregnant. The pale yellow wall behind her. A second-hand rocking chair she found at a thrift store, reupholstered with fabric from a shop on 9th Street. A mobile of paper stars that Renata made, hanging from a hook in the ceiling, turning slowly in the draft from the window. The knock was not loud, not aggressive. 3 knocks, evenly spaced. The way you knock when you are not sure you have the right door. Margot answered. She opened the door 6 inches and looked through the gap like a sentry. Graham Aldridge stood in the hallway. He was wearing a coat that cost more than the apartment. His hair was different, shorter, his eyes were red. He looked like a man who had not slept in days and had recently learned that the last 7 months of his life had been built on sand. Margot did not move aside. You do not get to walk in here like you are saving someone, she said. She saved herself. Graham opened his mouth, closed it. He did not argue. He did not push past her. He stood in the hallway and accepted the assessment of a woman he had never met, who was blocking a door with the authority of a castle wall. I know, he said. I know I am too late. I know I should have looked harder, called harder, tried harder. I know all of that, and I know that knowing it does not fix anything. Then why are you here? Because she deserves the truth from me. Not from a lawyer, not from a court document, from me. Margot studied him. She had the eyes of a woman who had spent 30 years reading people across a diner counter. The regulars who were fine, the regulars who were falling apart, the strangers who were dangerous, the strangers who were just lost. She stepped aside, not all the way, just enough. Elise appeared behind her mother. She was wearing maternity clothes that did not match. A gray sweater, black leggings, socks with a hole in the left toe. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup, the kind of rawness that cannot be faked because it is not a performance. She was 8 months pregnant. The fact of it hit Graham like a physical force. Not the abstract idea of a child. The real, visible, undeniable reality of a woman carrying his son. He could not speak for 10 seconds, 20, an entire half-minute of standing in a hallway in a building that smelled like dry cleaning chemicals, looking at the woman he had been told was a thief and a liar, and seeing instead the woman who once put a daisy in a paper cup on his emergency room tray. Elise, do not say my name like that, like it is something you lost and just found. You did not lose me. You let them take me. There is a difference. He flinched, not visibly, but she saw it. She always saw the things he tried to hide. You are right, he said. I let them. I believed them without calling you, without checking, without doing the one thing I should have done first, which was trust you. Why didn't you? The question hung in the air of the narrow hallway. A man on the floor below was playing music. Something with violins. faint enough to be a memory. Because trusting them was easier, Graham said. My whole life I followed their script. When they said jump, I asked how high. When they said someone was dangerous, I believed it. Not because I was stupid, because believing them meant I did not have to think for myself. And thinking for myself was the one thing they never taught me to do. Elise leaned against the doorframe. The baby shifted inside her. She put her hand on her belly, an automatic gesture. The kind of gesture that becomes second nature when you have been having a conversation with someone who cannot talk back but who listens to everything. You believe them, without asking me, without one phone call you made yourself. That is the part I cannot get past. I know. Do you? Because you showed up here, at my door, in your expensive coat. And part of me wants to let you in, and part of me knows that letting you in means trusting that you will not let them do this again. And I do not have that trust right now, Graham. I gave it to you once, and you handed it to your mother like it was nothing. Graham sat down, not in the apartment, in the hallway, on the floor, his back against the wall, his expensive coat crumpling against the scuffed baseboard. He did not cry dramatically. He just sat there, a man on the floor of a hallway, understanding for the first time the weight of what he allowed to happen. Elise looked at him. The man she loved, the man who failed her, the man who was, at this moment, smaller than the hallway he sat in. She closed the door, not slammed, closed, the soft click of the latch, the quiet finality of a woman who did not need to be loud to be heard. Inside, she leaned against the door. Margot was in the kitchen, pretending to wash dishes that were already clean. He is still in the hallway, Margot said. I know. How long are you going to leave him there? As long as it takes for me to decide if I want to open the door again. The weeks that followed were not a love story. They were an accountability story. Graham did not beg. He did not send grand gestures. He did not show up with flowers or speeches or lawyers offering settlements. He showed up with groceries, carried them up the stairs, left them by the door, did not knock. He fixed the leaking ceiling. Elise came home from the clinic and found it patched. No note, no credit claimed, just a dry ceiling where a wet one used to be. He sat in the waiting room during her prenatal appointments. She did not invite him inside. He did not ask. Margot began tolerating him. That was the highest honor in Margot's emotional vocabulary. She did not like him. She did not trust him. But she allowed him to carry groceries, which, in Margot's world, was almost the same as forgiveness. The unraveling of the Aldridge family happened not with a bang, but with a legal brief. Deacon delivered the evidence to the Aldridge Industries Board of Directors in a conference room on the 42nd floor of a building in Midtown. Spencer was present, so was Cordelia, so were 12 board members who had invested their careers in the Aldridge name. Deacon was calm. He placed the documents on the table one by one. The fabricated bank records, the email chain with the hotel concierge, the texts between Spencer and Cordelia, the corporate filings linking the fraudulent account to Spencer's name. He did not raise his voice. He did not make dramatic speeches. He let the paper do the talking. Spencer was removed from the company by unanimous vote, not arrested, not yet, but removed, stripped of his title, his salary, his access, and his office with the view of Central Park. Cordelia was asked to step back from the Aldridge Family Foundation. Step back was the polite language. The impolite language was, step back or we will push you. Vivian testified. She sat in a chair across from 12 board members and told them everything she saw, everything she heard, and everything she helped cover up by staying silent for too long. Her hands shook the entire time. Her voice did not. Afterward, she texted Elise. 4 words. I do not know if we are friends, but thank you for not hating me. Elise texted back. 3 words. You showed up. That night, Elise sat on her apartment balcony. It was small, barely fit a chair. She could see the parking lot of a grocery store, and beyond it, a strip of sky where the sun was setting, orange and pink and the deep bruised purple that comes just before dark. She drank decaf coffee from her world's okayest nurse mug. Her hand rested on her belly. The baby moved, a slow roll. Like a wave passing through her, she sat there for a long time, not thinking about Graham, not thinking about Cordelia, or Spencer, or the board of directors, or the legal proceedings that were just beginning, thinking about nothing, which after 7 months of thinking about everything felt like the most luxurious thing in the world. The parking lot lights came on, fluorescent, humming. A man loaded groceries into his truck. A woman walked to her car, talking on the phone, laughing at something. Elise smiled, not because everything was fixed. Everything was not fixed. Everything was, in fact, a glorious mess. But she was still here, on a balcony, with coffee, and a baby who would arrive in 4 weeks, whether the world was ready or not. She used to think strength meant enduring, staying, absorbing the blows, and smiling through them. Now she understood. Strength was building something from the wreckage that was entirely her own, something no one could sign away or lock her out of. The baby came on to the Tuesday, because of course he did. Elise had always loved Tuesdays. Graham had left for Tokyo on a Tuesday. She had been expelled from the estate on a Wednesday. But the baby chose Tuesday, and she decided to let him reclaim the day. Labor was 18 hours. Not dramatic, not cinematic, long and hard and unglamorous and exactly as painful as every woman who has ever done it knows it to be. Margot held one hand. Renata held the other. They took shifts. Margot during the early hours, when labor was slow and the room was quiet. Renata during the active phase, when the contractions came faster, and Elise gripped her hand so hard that Renata's fingers turned white. Graham was there, in the room. Because Elise decided, not because he assumed, not because anyone told her she should, because she looked at him standing in the hallway of the hospital, holding a bag he had packed with things he thought she might need, and she saw something she had not seen before. Not the billionaire, not the Aldridge heir, not the man who let his family destroy her life. A scared person, a person who was about to become a father, a person who was terrified of being in the room and more terrified of not being in the room. "You can come in," she said. He came in, sat in a chair by the window, did not speak unless spoken to, did not touch her unless she asked, did not try to be a hero. At 4:17 in the afternoon, Callum Hadley was born. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, a full head of dark hair, eyes that could not decide between blue and gray. Hands so small they seemed like a suggestion of hands rather than the real thing. Elise held him first, skin to skin, his warm weight on her chest, his heartbeat against hers, 2 rhythms finding each other for the first time outside the body. She looked at his face. He looked back at her with the unfocused, ancient gaze of someone who has just arrived in a world they do not yet understand. "Hi," she whispered. "I am your mom. I have been waiting for you." She named him Callum. Callum Hadley, not Aldridge. Hadley. Margot held him second. She sat in the rocking chair by the bed, the baby in her arms, and she sang a song that Elise recognized. A lullaby. One Margot used to sing when Elise was small and afraid of thunderstorms. Something about a river and a boat and stars that watched over sleeping children. Margot's voice was not beautiful. It was rough and low and slightly off-key. It was the most perfect sound in the room. Graham held him third. Elise watched his face as the nurse placed Callum in his arms. She watched the change happen, the dissolving, the complete, absolute, cellular reorganization of a person's priorities in the span of 3 seconds. He did not speak. He looked at his son. His son looked back at him with the same unfocused, ancient gaze. And Graham cried, not loudly, not dramatically. The tears just came, sliding down his face, dropping onto the hospital blanket, one after another, like a faucet someone had forgotten to close. "He has your chin," Graham said. "He has his own chin. Yeah, he does." Barrett Aldridge came to the hospital the next day, alone. He arrived in a car that was too expensive for the neighborhood and parked it badly. He walked through the hospital lobby, looking lost, a man who had spent his life in rooms designed for him, suddenly standing in a room designed for everyone. He held Callum, carefully, the way you hold something irreplaceable. "I should have stopped it," Barrett said. He was looking at the baby, but speaking to Elise. "I knew what they were doing. I did not stop it because stopping it meant fighting Cordelia, and I have not fought Cordelia in 30 years. That is not an excuse. It is the truth." Elise watched him, this tired man, in his expensive suit, holding her son, confessing his cowardice. "I will not ask you to forgive that," Barrett said, "but I want you to know something. This boy will never wonder if he matters, not as long as I am alive." Elise nodded. She did not say, "I forgive you." She was not ready. She might never be ready. But she let him hold her son, and in that moment, that was enough. Cordelia did not visit. She sent flowers, a large, expensive arrangement, white lilies and roses, the kind you send to a funeral or a person you are performing affection for. Elise looked at the flowers. Margot looked at the flowers. "Throw them out?" Margot asked. "Throw them out." Margot threw them out. She kept the vase. It was a nice vase. Renata came in the evening with a gift, a tiny baseball glove, leather, scuffed, found at a thrift store for $3. "For the kid," Renata said. "He is going to need it when I teach him to throw. Because no offense, but you throw like a person who has never thrown anything in her life. I throw fine. You throw like a startled bird. But that is okay. That is why he has Aunt Renata." Elise laughed. The sound surprised her. Not because it was unexpected, but because it was real, unforced. The kind of laugh that comes from somewhere deep and warm and unbroken. In the days that followed, the legal machinery continued its work. Deacon filed. Lawyers responded. Documents were exchanged. The kind of slow, grinding process that turns dramatic events into line items and court dates. Spencer retained his own counsel. Expensive. Aggressive. The kind of lawyers who charge by the syllable. But the evidence was the evidence. Fabricated bank records, intercepted mail, wire fraud. The kind of paper trail that no amount of money can erase because it exists in copies and servers and safe deposit boxes. The grandfather's will clause activated quietly. Graham had a legitimate heir before his 35th birthday. The controlling shares of Aldridge Industries were secured in his name. Spencer's gambit had failed. But here was the thing that Elise only learned later, and that changed the shape of everything. She never knew about the clause. Graham never told her. She did not know about the grandfather's will, the 35 deadline, or the inheritance split. She was never playing that game. She was never a piece on that board. She was a woman who fell in love with a man in an emergency room and got pregnant and was thrown out of a house and built a life from nothing. The billionaire's only heir was a fact that existed outside her story. She happened to be carrying him. But she was not carrying a strategy. She was carrying a child. 3 weeks after Callum's birth, a courier arrived at the apartment. A letter from Deacon. Inside, a legal document. Graham had placed 60% of his Aldridge Industries shares into an irrevocable trust in Callum's name. The trust was managed by an independent trustee, not the family, not Graham alone. Independent, a person with no connection to the Aldridge family, selected by a panel, accountable to the court. It was the single largest voluntary transfer of wealth in the company's history. And it was done without negotiation, without conditions, and without Elise asking for it. A handwritten note was attached. Graham's handwriting. Messy. The kind of handwriting that has never been corrected because no one ever told the billionaire's son to write more neatly. I cannot undo what happened. I can make sure he never has to fight for what is his. And I can spend the rest of my life earning back the right to stand next to you. Elise read the note, sitting at the kitchen table. Callum asleep in the second-hand crib, she assembled herself with a YouTube tutorial and a borrowed screwdriver. Margot doing a crossword puzzle on the couch, the radiator clanking, the ceiling dry. She read it twice, folded it carefully, put it in the drawer of the nightstand, next to her mother's recipe cards and the photograph from the farmer's market. She did not call him, not tonight. But she did not throw it away either. That evening, her phone buzzed. A text from Renata, a photo of the tiny baseball glove placed on a shelf in Renata's apartment, next to a framed photo of Renata and Elise from nursing school, both of them in scrubs, both of them grinning, both of them completely unaware of everything that would come next. The caption read, "For the kid, saving it until he is big enough," which, based on the size of his feet, should be approximately next Thursday. Elise laughed again, twice in 1 month, a new record. She put the phone down, got up, walked to the crib. Callum was sleeping, his hands curled into fists, his mouth making the small, reflexive movements of a baby dreaming about something only babies understand. She looked at him for a long time, the way you look at something you built, not bought, not inherited, not given, built. With your own hands and your own pain and your own stubborn, unbreakable refusal to disappear. The morning light came through the kitchen window, the same pale gold as the nursery wall. It fell across the crib, across the sleeping baby, across the hands of the woman standing guard. Elise lifted him gently, pressed her lips to his forehead, felt the warmth of him, the weight of him, the impossible, ordinary miracle of him. She whispered the only words that mattered. "You are so loved, and you always will be." Outside, the city woke up. Cars and buses and people walking to jobs and schools and lives they were building one day at a time. The dry cleaner downstairs turned on its machines. The hum rose through the floor like a heartbeat. Elise stood in her kitchen, holding her son, and let the morning find her, not rescued, not avenged, not restored to a mansion or a fortune or a life that was never truly hers, just standing in a small apartment in a big city, with a baby who did not know about inheritance clauses or iron gates or the sound a phone makes when the number you are calling no longer exists. A baby who knew only one thing, the sound of his mother's heartbeat, strong, steady, unbroken. And that was enough. Closing statement. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with real emotional value and life lessons to our audience. Every character, every scene, and every turning point was crafted with purpose because we believe storytelling is not just entertainment. It is how we understand each other. Thank you for listening until the very end.